discussing concepts such as energy healing, chakras, auras, the etheric body, and similar terms that have spread widely in recent decades is akin to traversing a minefield, an endeavor that demands exceptional mental and spiritual vigilance and an acute level of focus and awareness. On one hand, we cannot wholly deny the existence of such phenomena, for doing so would be the first step in a chain leading to the rejection of all that lies beyond the material realm. Such an absolute denial could ultimately culminate in the dismissal of the unseen world, of jinn, angels, and devils, eventually leading, God forbid, to the denial of the very existence of God. On the other hand, it is equally untenable to fully accept and embrace these notions without scrutiny, for many of them are rooted in dubious philosophies such as Theosophy, Gnosticism, as well as Buddhist and Hindu teachings, and are often derived from pagan and atheistic schools of thought. These ideologies seek to drown the human soul in confusion and spiritual disarray, stripping it of certainty and tethering it instead to false cosmic forces that usurp the role of the divine in creation and governance. Thus, this entire discourse stands as a striking example of truth being interwoven with falsehood, of misguidance cloaked in the guise of enlightenment, leading many to become lost between extreme materialist denial and unregulated spiritual surrender, wandering in a maze that seems to have no exit. Nonetheless, one cannot evade this labyrinth. We must tread it carefully and deliberately, as one would walk through a field of mines, in order to discern superstition from science and unveil the deception that masquerades as guidance. And once again, do not lose your focus. According to Hindu teachings, the human being is not composed of a single body, but of 5 distinct layers or sheaths, often referred to as the 5 kosas in Sanskrit. These represent different dimensions of existence and consciousness, each corresponding to a particular realm and aspect of human being. The first is the physical body, Annamaya kosha, which is the tangible, visible form comprised of flesh, bone, blood, and organs, all that is material and perceptible. This body belongs to the physical world and draws its energy from food, hence the name Annamaya, meaning composed of food. It perishes and decomposes after death, serving merely as the outermost shell of a human being, much like garments that are worn and then discarded. It is regarded as the least significant of the sheaths, for it is transient and ever-changing. The second is the etheric body, or pranamaya kosha, which contains the life force known as prana. This subtle energy is believed to be the unseen force that animates and sustains the physical body. The etheric body acts as a bridge between the material realm and higher planes of existence, and is thought to be responsible for the flow of energy through what are called chakras, 7 primary centers of subtle energy that are central to energy healing practices. Any imbalance within these centers affects the etheric body and, by extension, the physical body, resulting in illness. The third is the emotional body, or manomaya kosha, which encompasses emotions, desires, and affective experiences. It governs our responses to external stimuli and generates feelings such as fear, anger, love, and sorrow. According to these teachings, emotions are not merely chemical reactions, but dynamic flows within the emotional body that exert direct influence on both the etheric and physical bodies. Thus, through mindful meditation and emotional discipline, one can cultivate and regulate these inner states. The fourth is the mental body, or Vijnanamaya kosha, the seat of thought, belief, and comprehension, the realm of intellect and discernment. It shapes how we interpret and interact with the world, and is closely linked to levels of awareness and intelligence. Through this sheath, human beings are programmed by the concepts and ideas they absorb. This is why certain spiritual schools place great emphasis on reprogramming the mind through techniques such as meditation and positive affirmations, as negative thoughts are believed to leave imprints on this mental body, imprints that may manifest as illness or disturbances across the other layers of being. The fifth and final layer is the spiritual body, or Anandamaya Kosha, the most refined of the five sheaths, representing the true essence of the human being. It is said to be immortal, transcending death by undergoing successive cycles of reincarnation determined by one's actions, or what is known as karma, until the soul attains liberation, a state referred to as moksha. This body is believed to be in direct communion with what is called the universal consciousness, or the inner divine. Thus, the ultimate aim of deep spiritual practices and meditation is to access the sheath and experience spiritual wholeness through it. These five bodies are not separate entities but rather interwoven layers, beginning with the physical and culminating in the spiritual. It is held that imbalances in the higher bodies, the mental, emotional, or etheric, inevitably manifest in the lower, particularly in the physical body. For this reason, most spiritual healing and energy therapy methods focus on working from the inside out, healing the subtle, inner layers before physical symptoms arise. Contrary to the belief that these ideas stem from a single source, they are in fact the culmination of philosophical doctrines and beliefs that evolved over centuries within the vast landscape of Hindu teachings. Chief among these are the Upanishads, some of the oldest and most profound religious philosophical texts in India, which delve into esoteric teachings concerning the self and cosmic consciousness. The Taittiriya Upanishad in particular outlines this fivefold human constitution, naming the layers as Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya, the original Sanskrit terms for the five sheaths. Building upon these ancient texts, the school of Vedanta, a philosophical tradition rooted in Upanishadic interpretation, asserts that the human being is but a manifestation of the universal soul, and that liberation is attained through detachment from the physical body and realization of the higher self. Vedanta also espouses the doctrine of non-duality Advaita, which proclaims the unity of existence and the essential oneness of the human and the divine. In the same spiritual tradition, the Bhagavad Gita, a revered epic considered one of Hinduism's most sacred scriptures, reinforces the belief that the body is but a temporary vessel for the eternal soul, which passes through many lifetimes on its journey toward enlightenment. Similarly, the Yoga Sutras, a classical collection of philosophical teachings foundational to the practice of yoga, present a detailed roadmap for liberating the self from the constraints of body and mind, culminating in the state of complete spiritual absorption known as samadhi. By the 19th century, these ideas made their way to the West through the Theosophical movement, which synthesized the five-body theory with other esoteric traditions such as Gnosticism, Kabbalah, and Hermeticism. During the 20th century, they gained widespread popularity through the New Age movement, eventually becoming the subject of various modern workshops and courses built on the premise that hidden bodies govern the core of human experience. These philosophies have also been co-opted at times to promote pantheistic notions that deify the self, couched in alluring phrases like, "The universe is within you," or "You are the creator of your own reality," phrases that stand in stark contrast to the monotheistic understanding of divine transcendence. Naturally, we will soon pause to examine in depth the notion of reincarnation and the New Age movement, given their profound influence on the dissemination of these ideas and ideologies, and, of course, to reflect upon the Islamic perspective on them. But first, let us take a step back and delve more deeply into the etheric body and chakras and their intimate connection to the concept of energy healing. Energy healing stands as a fundamental pillar in Eastern philosophies, grounded in the belief that an invisible cosmic force flows through the human body. This vital energy is known as prana in Hindu tradition, chi in Chinese culture, and ki in Japanese teachings. It is believed that this energy can be adjusted or rebalanced to enhance physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being through various therapeutic practices. Among these is Reiki, a Japanese system wherein the healer channels energy into the patient by hovering their hands above the body. Another is pranic healing, rooted in Indian practice, which involves cleansing and revitalizing the aura through specific breathing and meditative techniques. These approaches rest on the premise that a subtle, invisible body exists, one that interacts with thoughts, emotions, and energies, and must be cleansed or realigned for one to regain health. This body, as previously discussed, is known as the etheric body, envisioned as an energetic sheath that envelopes the physical form and serves as a conduit between the soul and the body. It is said to absorb cosmic energy from the universe through the chakras and distribute it to the body's organs. The term chakra in Sanskrit means wheel or disc, and it refers to non-physical energy centers aligned along what is known as the etheric spine, not the visible, physical one. These chakras are considered gateways for universal life energy and are deemed essential to the proper flow of prana throughout the body. Any blockage or imbalance within them is believed to result in psychological or physical disturbances. According to the most widely accepted systems within yoga and Vedanta, there are 7 primary chakras aligned from the base of the pelvis to the crown of the head. First, root chakra Muladhara, red in color, associated with the element earth. Located at the base of the spine, between the anus and genitals, it governs primal instincts and survival emotions such as fear and hunger. Second, sacral chakra, Svadhisthana, orange, aligned with water. Situated just below the navel, it relates to emotions, sensuality, relationships, and sexual desire. Third, solar plexus chakra Manipura, yellow linked to fire. Found above the navel, it is associated with willpower, personal strength, and self-confidence. Fourth, heart chakra Anahata, green, sometimes depicted as pink, tied to air. Positioned at the center of the chest, it governs love, compassion, forgiveness, and deep emotional connections. Fifth, throat chakra Vishuddha, sky blue, associated with the element of ether. Located in the throat, it influences honesty, verbal creativity, expression, and communication. Sixth, third eye chakra Ajna, indigo in color, representing light. Found between the eyebrows, it governs insight, intuition, and wisdom. It is often considered the gateway to extrasensory perception, inner vision, and the subconscious mind. Seventh, crown chakra Sahasrara, violet or white, representing universal consciousness. Located at the top of the head, it symbolizes enlightenment, divine connection, and dissolution into the absolute. Its full activation is believed to mark the apex of consciousness and the attainment of ultimate liberation. It is thus understood that these chakras function as portals within the etheric body, receiving cosmic energy. They are said to be in their purest, most balanced state at birth. However, as individuals grow and become immersed in the material world and its desires, these centers may become imbalanced or blocked, thereby disrupting the flow of energy and impairing the physical body. According to tantric and yogic teachings, the chakras do not open spontaneously. Rather, they require activation through the awakening of what is known as Kundalini energy. Kundalini, a Sanskrit word meaning coiled or spiraled, represents a latent spiritual force believed to reside at the base of the spine, specifically within the root chakra. It is often symbolized as a dormant serpent lying curled at the base of the etheric spine. When awakened, this serpent-like energy begins its ascent through a central channel known as Sushumna, winding upward in 3.5 coils, passing through each of the 7 chakras and activating them one by one. As the energy rises, the individual undergoes profound spiritual, psychological, and physical transformations, culminating at the 7th chakra, the crown chakra, at the apex of the head. The opening of this final chakra is said to bring about spiritual illumination or ultimate liberation, known as samadhi, a state of ecstatic union with the divine. Now, perhaps you feel a sense of unease or even revulsion at this startling narrative, so strikingly at odds with monotheistic doctrine. That reaction is not without reason. I have intentionally presented these concepts using their original names and definitions as they appear in Eastern teachings, rather than the polished, appealing terms favored by modern self-help speakers and energy healers, which many embrace uncritically, often unaware that this booming industry now generates millions in profit. Nonetheless, let's continue piecing together this fragmented picture, arranging the scattered elements into a coherent whole. Only then can we understand how these practices in their current form subtly undermine core tenets of faith, despite the possibility that, when reframed through a different lens, they could represent genuine spiritual elevation and strengthen one's connection with God. The process of chakra opening, in order to receive cosmic energy, hinges upon the awakening of the Kundalini serpent through a series of specialized spiritual rites. Among these is Kundalini Yoga, a discipline combining breath control, physical postures, meditation, and sacred chants known as mantras, vocal sounds with specific vibrational frequencies, such as Lam, Vam, Ram, Om, and others, which are said to stir the inner serpent from its slumber. There is also the ritual of Diksha, in which energy is believed to be transferred from the spiritual teacher to the disciple through physical touch, often placed upon the forehead or along the spine. Additionally, practices such as sensory deprivation, fasting, and extreme asceticism are employed as means to stimulate the rise of Kundalini. While those who undertake the Kundalini awakening often describe it as a transcendent spiritual experience, numerous accounts speak of violent or terrifying side effects, such as involuntary body movements, tremors, vivid inner visions or voices resembling hallucinations, dissociative episodes, and erratic shifts in behavior or perception. For this reason, some schools of thought strongly caution against attempting Kundalini activation without the close guidance of a qualified spiritual mentor. The potential dangers include severe psychological disturbances, such as hysterical fits or deep depressive episodes. Some researchers and observers of this phenomenon have noted striking similarities between the awakening of Kundalini, with its accompanying strange and uncontrollable manifestations, and what is commonly referred to as spiritual possession, demonic influence, or deep hypnotic trance. This is because Kundalini is not a physical energy, but a metaphysical concept rooted in Hindu spirituality, particularly within the teachings of Shakta Tantra, which deifies the feminine principle known as Shakti. Kundalini, therefore, represents the dormant goddess Shakti within the body, and the goal of the spiritual journey to awaken her is the union of the feminine energy with the masculine consciousness at the crown of the head. This union is believed to symbolize the return to divine unity, a core notion of pantheistic belief within this doctrine. To put it simply, when God created man, he shielded him from demonic forces, granting them no authority over him, unless man himself, through ignorance or negligence, opens the door and permits their influence. This is precisely what these rituals do. They unwittingly open pathways through which dark forces may infiltrate and gain dominion. This issue will be explored in greater detail later. For now, the essential question is, how do these ideas find their way into our culture? And why have they become so intertwined with divine religious beliefs that many people now struggle to distinguish between them? In the mid-20th century, in the United States, a movement emerged known as the New Age movement. It was not merely a passing cultural trend or a superficial social phenomenon, but rather a deliberate and systematic spiritual and intellectual project that began to take shape during the 1960s and 1970s, rising from the ashes of the hippie movement and the widespread rebellion against capitalism and traditional Christian values. Over time, it evolved into a powerful ideological and spiritual current, infiltrating various spheres such as education, the arts, media, technology, and even politics. The intellectual and theological roots of the New Age movement are a blend of theosophical thought, which emerged in the 19th century and promoted the idea of religious unity and transcendence toward a higher cosmic order, along with Eastern mysticism from Buddhism, Hinduism, and Taoism, as well as ancient Gnosticism, a mystical belief system that claims secret knowledge is the key to salvation. Gnosticism denies the Creator as the ultimate source of good, replacing him with an esoteric vision of a hidden God within. The New Age movement's stated aim was to build what it called cosmic consciousness, an aspiration to establish a universal religion that transcends traditional religious and doctrinal divides and embraces pantheism, the belief that the divine is immanent in all things, that God, nature, and humanity are one. It deifies the self by teaching that man must discover the God within. It also seeks to dissolve all binaries, good and evil, darkness and light, viewing them as parts of a greater, indivisible whole. Ultimately, it rejects religion and divine law, regarding them as obstacles to humanity's spiritual evolution. Within just a few years, the movement spread like wildfire, not merely due to its alluring message, but through its strategic use of various media, novels, films, and self-help seminars that bore glossy slogans like "Discover your true self," "The power of now," and "The secrets of success." All these materials carried messages drawn from Eastern mysticism and Gnostic philosophy, ultimately converging in what became known as the law of attraction, a central tenet of the New Age movement. This principle asserts that the thoughts and emotions a person focuses on will inevitably attract corresponding experiences and events, whether positive or negative. This theory is founded on the premise that the universe acts as a mirror to one's internal energy, responding accordingly to the mental and emotional frequencies one emits. Advocates claim that reality itself can be programmed, and that wealth, love, or success may be attained through mere positive thinking and vivid imagination. Notably, this concept gained global traction through popular works such as The Secret by Australian author and television producer Rhonda Byrne. Despite its widespread appeal, it lacks scientific grounding, disregards natural laws, causality, and divine ordinances, often veering into the realm of superstition and counterfeit spiritualism. The New Age movement was not confined to personal practices or private seminars. Rather, it gradually and methodically infiltrated educational institutions. It introduced spiritual notions disguised in scientific terminology. Terms like positive energy, vibrations, cosmic awareness, and inner power, presented as psychological insights or discoveries in quantum physics. In a bid to avoid overt religiosity in secular contexts, proponents promoted what they termed non-religious spirituality, offering a nebulous portrayal of cosmic energy, higher consciousness, and unity with the universe as alternatives to conventional religious doctrines. This allowed individuals to feel a spiritual dimension in their lives without the constraints of theological or legal commitments. Practices such as yoga, Reiki, and transcendental meditation, among other esoteric rituals, were rebranded as techniques for enhancing focus and reducing stress, often deployed in therapeutic programs without reference to their pagan origins. Additionally, children and adolescents were targeted with self-development programs incorporating ideas like the law of attraction, future goal visualization, and the invocation of cosmic intentions, leading them to believe that their thoughts shape their reality and that the universe responds to their frequencies. These notions distort divine laws and undermine the responsibility of action and trust in God. Thus, the New Age movement succeeded in packaging its philosophy within appealing scientific and educational frameworks, particularly in the context of moral and spiritual collapse in many Western educational environments, exploiting the psychological thirst of younger generations for meaning, a void created by the fragmented, reformed Christianity of the West, which became so disjointed it allowed pagan ideas to penetrate with ease. In contrast, The Islamic East, with its solid creed and cohesive epistemological system, served as a formidable barrier against these imported spiritual currents. It was virtually impossible for such ideologies to take root until methodical efforts were made to dismantle this fortress by spreading doubts, denying the prophetic tradition, distorting Islamic history, and igniting theological and ideological discord. These breaches enabled New Age ideas to seep in, not in their original, unadulterated form, but cloaked in a deceptive Islamic veneer, promoted as solutions to perceived spiritual or intellectual deficiencies, while in reality, they represent a grave deviation from the essence of monotheism. We will explore how the use of soft language and seemingly appealing terminology, which avoids direct confrontation with religious doctrine, facilitated the transmission of these concepts into Muslim societies. We will also examine the pivotal role played by modern media, both traditional and digital, in entrenching the vocabulary of the New Age movement and disseminating it widely, carried by figures who bore deception as though it were a torch of enlightenment, merciful in appearance, yet tormenting at its core. Have you ever heard of the so-called lightworkers? It is a term widely used in modern spirituality and in the beliefs of the New Age movement. It refers to a category of human beings believed to be connected to a higher energy, entrusted with spiritual missions, foremost among them elevating human consciousness, spreading love, peace, and light throughout the world. Although most are unaware of this role, they eventually come to recognize their purpose in guiding others towards spiritual awakening and inner growth. Lightworkers are said to be divided into 12 distinct types, each with its own unique qualities. It is often suggested that one should examine these traits to see whether they might belong to such a group. What follows does not reflect our own convictions. It is presented merely for the sake of knowledge, and also as a prelude to what we intend to discuss further. First, the healers. They are marked by warm or radiant hands, gentle and compassionate eyes, and a soothing, calming presence. Second, the guides. They often possess a calm or deep voice, deliberate and balanced body language, and eyes that seem to touch the soul, instilling a sense of safety in others. Third, the spiritual mediums. Their gaze is often distant, as if communing with another realm or receiving messages from spiritual or angelic entities. Their voices are soft, as though speaking from afar. They frequently suffer from headaches or pressure in the third eye between the brows, and their bodies tend toward fragility. Fourth, the karmic restorers. They often feel a heaviness in the shoulders or chest, and their faces carry early lines of wisdom despite their youth. Life brings them difficult experiences from an early age, which deepen their inclination toward reflection and contemplation. Fifth, the earth guardians. They are frequently of darker or earth-tone complexion, with large feet that symbolize groundedness. They often prefer to walk barefoot, feeling a deep connection with plants, animals, and nature. Sixth, the peace messengers. They wear serene expressions and constant smiles, breathe slowly and evenly, and maintain a naturally low heartbeat. Their body language is never aggressive, making them peacemakers who bring calm to conflicts and harmony to relationships. Seventh, the seers. With wide or almond-shaped eyes, they may suffer headaches or blurred vision and feel uneasy in noisy or negative environments. When they look at others, it often feels as though they are gazing through them, perceiving something unseen. They are believed to possess an inner vision, a third eye, granting them the ability to foresee events or read energies in people. Eighth, the illuminators. They often have striking or radiant features and a vibrant, captivating tone of voice. Drawn to bright colors, their gestures are full of energy and vitality. Their role is to expose hidden truths, dispel illusions, and raise awareness. Ninth, the grid workers. They experience sensations of heaviness or tingling in the soles of their feet or heads, preferring sacred or natural places like mountains and temples. They sometimes appear weary for no apparent reason and are said to work with Earth's energy grids or portals. 10th, the manifestors. They possess magnetic faces and radiant energy, speaking with great confidence and often gesturing expressively. They are believed to have the power to materialize intentions and bring desires into reality. 11th, the bearers of the divine code. They exhibit an uncommon, often unconventional beauty with harmonious and balanced physiques. Their words carry wisdom beyond their years, and they are said to hold within their souls the divine blueprint or archetype of humanity. 12th, the starseeds. They bear unusual or otherworldly features, large eyes, oval faces, pale skin, and often feel from childhood that they are outsiders, not belonging to this world. Highly sensitive to light, sound, and food, they are drawn to solitude and repelled by social noise. They are believed to be souls originating from higher realms, incarnated to aid humanity in its awakening. For the second time, let it be noted that this perspective derives from the doctrines of the New Age movement, teachings that cannot be wholly dismissed, as denying them outright would require us to deny the very existence of the unseen world. At the same time, they cannot be fully accepted, for they rest upon foundations designed to scatter the human mind and plunge it into confusion, so that one loses both self-awareness and the path to the true divine. The principal sources of these doctrines, as mentioned earlier, are the Eastern religions, chiefly Hinduism and Buddhism, which converge with the Abrahamic faiths in affirming that the soul does not perish and that earthly life is but a testing ground. Yet they diverge in asserting that, after the death of the body, the soul does not ascend to an eternal realm of either paradise or damnation according to one's deeds, but instead returns to life in a new form. This doctrine, known as reincarnation or samsara, stands as a central pillar of both Hindu and Buddhist belief. Hinduism, for instance, teaches that the soul Atman is eternal and does not die with the body, but is reborn in another form, whether human or animal, in accordance with the sum of one's deeds, known as karma. Karma is regarded as the prime mover of this cycle of rebirth. Every action, whether good or evil, is thought to be recorded and manifested in improved or diminished circumstances in the next life. Thus, the poor, the sick, and the disabled are viewed as suffering the consequences of past transgressions, while prosperity and health are interpreted as the fruits of virtuous deeds. This belief became the cornerstone of India's caste system, where one's birth into a particular class is seen as determined by karmic residue from previous lives. Reincarnation thus functions as a model of reward and punishment. Those with virtuous deeds return in the form of humans to enjoy a more privileged existence, while those laden with vice may be reborn as animals, lower beings, or even plants, depending on the weight of their karmic balance and the degree of spiritual refinement achieved in earlier lives. Thus, the soul is imagined to pass through endless cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, inhabiting diverse forms and circumstances in pursuit of spiritual evolution. Each return to life is believed to offer the chance to atone for past errors until one attains final liberation from the cycle. Moksha or nirvana, the ultimate union with a cosmic soul, Brahman, where individuality dissolves and personal existence ceases. The intellectual and religious roots of this doctrine are traced to the Upanishads, which explicitly explore the interrelation of soul, karma, and rebirth. The laws of Manu further elaborate on this concept, linking past actions to social and spiritual destinies, while the great Hindu scriptures expound it more deeply. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, places these words on the lips of Krishna. As a man discards worn-out garments and puts on new ones, so the soul casts off the body and enters into another. Reincarnation also forms the cornerstone of yogic and Vedantic philosophy, which sees the soul as eternal, temporarily clothed in a material body reflecting its level of consciousness, purity, or moral corruption achieved in prior experiences. Existence is thus perceived not as linear but cyclical, an unending passage of souls across bodies, governed by the spiritual law of cause and effect. Moreover, reincarnation is not conceived solely on the level of the soul, but also in terms of energy and the alignment of the chakras. It is believed that one who dies burdened with blockages or imbalances in their chakras will be reborn still suffering from them physically or psychologically, thus linking spiritual health and bodily vitality to the doctrine of rebirth. Buddhism, for its part, adopted the notion of reincarnation but without the concept of a fixed self. Here, the soul is not regarded as an immutable essence but as a stream of consciousness or energy, flowing from one existence to another, devoid of any permanent identity. This nebulous conception only deepens the obscurity of the idea, turning it into a philosophical instrument for the dissolution of individual soulhood, suggesting that man possesses no true spiritual essence, but is rather a fleeting illusion of perception, vanishing as a wave fades back into the sea. In Western esoteric traditions such as Gnosticism and Theosophy, one finds implicit allusions to the soul's return in different bodies, purportedly to learn and to be freed from ignorance. This vision closely mirrors the Eastern notion of karma and later inspired movements that reintroduced reincarnation to the Western world under the guise of spiritual science. From there, the doctrine gained currency within the New Age movement and, over time, crept subtly into the Islamic world, concealed behind alternative designations. Yet despite the apparent allure of cosmic justice through reincarnation, as envisioned in Eastern religions and esoteric philosophies, the idea encounters grave philosophical difficulties, foremost among them the absence of memory. To place a soul within a system of reward and punishment without recollection of past deeds nullifies the very notion of justice, erasing the moral lesson intended. If the soul is indeed accountable for its actions, how could an individual be punished for deeds he does not remember? Even within Indian thought, reincarnation has not gone unchallenged. The ancient materialist Charvaka philosophers denied the existence of the soul altogether and rejected reincarnation as an unfounded hypothesis, dismissing it as a religious device to regulate human behavior through promises and threats. Moreover, reincarnation has often been wielded to justify social stratification and injustice, claiming that those born into lower castes or afflicted with suffering deserve such conditions as the outcome of prior karmic debts. This stands in stark opposition to the revealed religions, especially Islam, which proclaims the soul to be a divine breath, a sacred mystery from God, animating the physical body. Upon death, the soul does not return to earthly life but transitions to its higher realm. In Islam, the posthumous journey is clearly defined. The soul resides in al-barzakh, the intermediate state, until the day of resurrection. Thus, Islam establishes with absolute clarity a worldview antithetical to reincarnation. Reward and punishment cannot exist without conscious memory, awareness, and accountability. To burden a soul with the consequences of forgotten lives is inherently unjust. Moreover, the belief in reincarnation undermines the doctrine of the hereafter, negates the day of judgment, and replaces the divine judge with a blind cosmic mechanism of karma, thereby eroding moral responsibility and leading toward esoteric atheism. The Quran explicitly refutes the idea of souls returning to earthly life after death. Until when death comes to one of them, he says, "My Lord, send me back that I might do righteousness in that which I left behind." No, it is but a word he speaks, and behind them is a barrier until the day they are resurrected. Hence, the claim of reincarnation is nothing more than a satanic deception aimed at demolishing the creed of monotheism. To embrace it is to deny resurrection, nullify divine justice, and reduce moral responsibility to a meaningless cycle in which the soul drifts endlessly through successive lives, while paradise, hell, and the final reckoning are all cast aside. Ibn Taymiyyah, in his work Al-Rad ala al-Manichaean, made it clear that the doctrine of reincarnation is among the earliest forms of philosophical atheism, a deception that ensnared the minds of idolatrous nations. He further asserted that such illusions are cast into the hearts of men by devils who whisper to their allies. Some early scholars likewise reported that those who claim to witness incarnated souls are in truth deceived by the manifestations and impersonations of jinn. In essence, reincarnation, in its esoteric roots, transcends the superficial moral dimension and directly undermines the creed of resurrection and judgment. Beneath its mystical veneer, it seeks to establish the belief that man is a divine or semi-divine being, or self-evolving entity who needs no creator to fashion him or to hold him accountable, since he is allegedly governed by impersonal cosmic laws, driven by his energy, frequency, or intention. At its core, this doctrine amounts to a denial of the resurrection taught by revealed religions, recasting the soul within pantheistic or mystical unionist frameworks. It is, in truth, a disguised form of atheism clothed in spiritual garb, propagated today through yoga, self-development courses, and energy healing practices, heedless of its satanic origins. Nevertheless, the notion of reincarnation has found remarkable popularity in the modern West. The Canadian psychiatrist and researcher Ian Stevenson documented more than 2,000 cases of individuals claiming to recall previous lives. His works are still studied in certain Western universities under programs exploring consciousness beyond death. Among the most famous accounts is that of Shanti Devi, a girl born in Delhi in the year 1926. By the age of 4, she began insisting that she vividly remembered a former life as a woman named Lugdi, who lived in the city of Mathura in northern India with her husband Kedarnath, but who had died during childbirth. At first, her family dismissed the claims as childish fantasy. Yet she persisted, repeating the same details with unwavering consistency. When she reached the age of 9, one of her teachers sent a letter to the address she had provided as her former home. To the astonishment of all, a reply arrived from a real man named Kedarnath, confirming that his wife had indeed been called Lugdi and had died in childbirth 9 years earlier, precisely at the time Shanti Devi claimed to have died and been reborn. Her family then traveled with her to Mathura, where she recognized her former relatives, described minute details of her former home, and even identified her own bedroom. The case drew such attention that in 1935, Mahatma Gandhi appointed a commission of inquiry, which issued a report suggesting that the girl's testimony was beyond the fabrications of a child. Another widely cited case concerns a Druze child from the Golan Heights in Syria, whose name is often withheld due to the community's cultural and religious reservations about revealing personal details. At around the age of 3, the child began recounting memories of a former life, insisting that he had been a man from a neighboring village who had been murdered by an axe blow to the head. He not only named his alleged killer, but also led villagers to the site where he claimed his body had been buried. When the ground was excavated, a human skeleton was uncovered, bearing a skull injury consistent with the sharp-bladed wound described by the child. Investigations further reveal that the man named by the boy did indeed exist. Once apprehended, he confessed to a murder long hidden and known to none. A third renowned case is that of James Leininger, an American child born in 1998. By the age of 2, he exhibited unusual behavior for one so young, drawing detailed sketches of warplanes and waking in terror from recurrent nightmares in which he found himself trapped in a burning cockpit or plummeting from the skies. Later, he told his father that he had once been a fighter pilot named James Houston, who flew a Corsair aircraft from a carrier called Natoma Bay. Upon investigation, his father discovered that the USS Natoma Bay had indeed taken part in the Battle of Iwo Jima, and among its pilots had been a man named James Houston, whose plane had been shot down in combat against the Japanese in 1945. Unsurprisingly, the subtle machinery of cultural indoctrination has not neglected to reinforce the idea of reincarnation and Eastern mysticism more broadly, the very foundation of the New Age movement, through a wide range of cinematic and dramatic works. Among them, A Cloud Atlas, a sweeping philosophical epic interweaving 6 stories spanning from the 19th century to a distant post-apocalyptic future. Each tale features recurring characters reborn across ages, exploring themes of karma, reincarnation, freedom, responsibility, and identity. The film conveys the existential notion that a single soul may be reborn into multiple forms, carrying echoes of its past lives to affirm that all existence is interconnected. The Fountain, which unfolds through 3 intertwined timelines. In the past, a monk in search of the Tree of Life. In the present, a physician striving to cure his wife's cancer. And in the future, a disembodied soul drifting through the cosmos. The narrative meditates upon reincarnation, eternal love, and the quest for both spiritual and physical immortality. A Birth, a psychological drama centered on a grieving widow who, 10 years after her husband's death, encounters a 10-year-old boy claiming to be her deceased spouse reborn. Their unsettling relationship probes the boundaries of memory, rationality, and the mystery of reincarnation. Eye Origins, a science fiction drama about an ophthalmologist who discovers a recurring pattern in iris structures, which may suggest the existence of the soul and its transmigration. After the death of his beloved, his research leads him to a young girl in India with identical eyes and gestures, convincing him she is the very same soul returned. A Sense8, a series portraying 8 individuals from different parts of the globe who become suddenly linked through shared consciousness, seeing, hearing, and even inhabiting one another's bodies. Though not explicitly presenting reincarnation, it explores the themes of collective awareness, spiritual interconnectedness, and a vision akin to a form of collective interwoven rebirth. The series The OA also addressed these themes, telling the story of a blind girl who was kidnapped, only to return 7 years later with her sight restored. She claimed to have undergone experiences proving that death is nothing more than the transition of consciousness, or the soul, across parallel universes. It is presented as a veiled suggestion of reincarnation, blending ritualistic, quasi-spiritual movements with elements of experimental science. Yet, speaking of science, despite the fascination of such tales, stories of reincarnation fail to rise to the level of definitive scientific evidence. Most accounts rely heavily on personal testimonies, which may be shaped by complex psychological processes such as unconscious parental suggestion, vivid imagination in children, or what is known as false memory syndrome. For this reason, Ian Stevenson's lifelong research on children who claim to remember past lives has faced heavy criticism. Scholars highlighted the lack of strict scientific controls, repeated instances of bias and selective interpretation, and insufficient documentation to rule out the possibility that children have been exposed to such information by ordinary means. In the case of Shanti Devi, skeptics pointed out that India provides fertile cultural ground for beliefs in reincarnation, making it far more likely that children might imagine, imitate, or unconsciously absorb these ideas from their environment and relatives. Regarding James Leininger, although his case appears striking, critics argue that he may have picked up the information from his surroundings or through media exposure, especially given his parents' strong interest in World War II history. As for the Syrian child's story, its credibility collapses under scrutiny. For even the most basic piece of information, the identity of the child himself remains unverified. The same holds true for dozens, if not hundreds, of similar anecdotes. And nevertheless, if approached with neutrality, one might argue that outright dismissal of these accounts is itself somewhat illogical. The sheer amount of detail, coherence, and specificity recounted by very young children seems difficult to attribute entirely to parental influence or environmental exposure. Where, then, do such elaborate memories come from, if not, at least in rare instances, from souls reborn, carrying fragments of their former lives into the present? Indeed, there is no doubt that countless phenomena stand before science as insoluble enigmas. This stems from the fact that the scientific method is bound by a set of strict principles, which constrain its ability to provide persuasive explanations for such mysteries. Foremost among these principles lies the doctrine of verifiability, the axiom that any phenomenon which cannot be subjected to repeated experimentation for confirmation cannot be deemed scientific. Consequently, the unseen realm, in its entirety, holds no place within the framework of empirical science. Thus, the explanations offered by scholars to dismiss the stories of children who claim to have lived former lives proved far from convincing. For the wealth of intricate details these children recount at such tender ages cannot plausibly have reached them from their parents or immediate surroundings. From whence, then, do they acquire such vivid information, if not by being souls reborn, carrying remnants of their former existence as rare exceptions? To address this question, one cannot dispense with a religious perspective, particularly with regard to a singular concept, the Qareen. In Arabic, Qareen denotes a companion or constant consort. It refers to a being from among the jinn assigned to every human at birth, accompanying them throughout life, whispering temptations and embellishing sins. This entity is distinct from the human soul inclined toward evil. Rather, it is a separate creation of God, serving as a trial through which mankind is tested. The Quran itself references the Qareen in multiple passages, affirming its unwavering attachment to man. And since it belongs to the jinn, its lifespan far exceeds that of humans. It does not perish with its host, but persists for ages until God ordains its end, as with all jinn. In folklore and superstition, it is said that the Qareen may manifest to the bereaved in forms known as apparitions. Yet this, in truth, is not the Qareen itself, but rather the deceptive guises of jinn and devils. What matters here is that this spiritual entity clings to the human throughout life, knows the most intimate details of his existence, and unlike man, does not die with him, but may be attached to another. Imam al-Qurtubi, may God have mercy upon him, wrote an al-Tadhkirah concerning the states of the dead and the affairs of the hereafter. The Qareen is not buried with the man, but departs upon his death and is appointed over another of the living until God decrees the extinction of the jinn themselves. Thus the picture becomes complete, and the reality of so-called reincarnation is unveiled. The Qareen, as a metaphysical being, possesses the ability to penetrate the subconscious, instill whispers, and implant images or misleading notions into human awareness, particularly in childhood, when the mind is most susceptible and receptive. And since jinn are creatures of great longevity, today's child's Qareen may well have accompanied a human in a bygone era. Hence it may transmit that life's memories to the child in such a manner that the latter perceives them not as alien whispers, but as recollections of his own past. Accordingly, the stories children recount of previous lives are not true memories of reincarnated souls, but rather vestiges of another's life retained by the Qareen, impressed upon the child as false memories, crafting the illusion that he himself once lived that life. This is further evidenced by the fact that nearly all such children, upon outgrowing their early years, forget these memories entirely. For though planted in their minds, they lack the permanence of authentic experience, and with time they fade away, leaving only family anecdotes or the writings of those convinced of reincarnation. Such fading proves that these impressions do not stem from the depths of genuine consciousness, but are external influences, whether suggestion, the Qareen, or even unconscious indoctrination. Stripped of historical authenticity, they collapse under scrutiny. For if these were truly memories of a past life, as is claimed, they would endure with clarity, evolving with maturity and intellect, instead of vanishing with the fleeting years of childhood. Yet reality proves otherwise. These accounts soon fade and wither, vanishing like fleeting dreams that a child forgets upon leaving the realm of innocence and open receptivity. This lends weight to the view that they are nothing more than fragile psychological or spiritual constructs, exploited by proponents of corrupt doctrines to implant ideas that ultimately lead to a veiled denial of resurrection and the Day of Judgment. Such notions lay the groundwork for atheism in subtle and insidious ways, interwoven with other practices and alluring terms, lightworkers, spiritual healing techniques such as energy therapy, meditation, and aura cleansing, which have merged into the creed of the New Age movement and even infiltrated educational institutions through curricula promoting a non-religious spirituality as a safe alternative. These trends work to dismantle religious identity, especially among the youth who are easily swayed by motivational slogans and promises of self-development. They also fling wide the gates for demonic influence and possession. The chanting of mantras, the opening of energy centers, these are not gateways to enlightenment or to physical, emotional, and spiritual healing as their advocates claim. Rather, they are pagan rituals composed of incantations, symbols, and invocations of Hindu deities, and often draw perilously close to invoking the jinn. Their true aim is the breaching of man's spiritual defenses, creating passages through which devils may enter. Probe deeper into these resounding terms: self-development, mind programming, chakra balancing, the opening of the third eye, the awakening of cosmic energy, or a healing astral projection, and you will discover that those who ventured too far upon this path became as hollowed palm trunks battered by the winds, with many meeting their end in despair and suicide. In fact, within much of the literature on energy healing, one finds an implicit link between the 7 chakras and the Qareen. It is said that activating the root chakra in particular awakens a hidden force within man, the Kundalini energy. Thus, this chakra serves as a gateway to the lower self, or more precisely to the Qareen. The vast proliferation of New Age concepts cannot be deemed innocent or coincidental. Rather, it forms part of an intellectual project designed to secularize the soul and to establish the foundations of a new creed, one aligned with a new world order that leaves no room for divine revelation, nor for the Creator himself, but only for a deified humanity and a sanctified nature. Of course, these ideas are not presented in such stark and unveiled terms. They are offered under seductive labels, much like poison wrapped in gleaming paper. Hence they crept easily into the Islamic world, despite their corrosive effect on faith, luring people away from reliance on God toward dependence on inner energy or the cosmos. This infiltration was aided by the adoption of soft language and seemingly attractive terminology, positive energy, inner peace, and the like, expressions that do not clash overtly with creed but appear familiar, even innocuous. Especially when framed with Quranic verses or prophetic traditions that encourage optimism and trust in God, these terms are stripped of their true context and monotheistic meaning, and repurposed to serve philosophies built on human centrality rather than servitude to the divine. Thus, religion itself is transformed from a creed of pure monotheism into a tool for marketing materialistic or pagan visions, cloaked in counterfeit spirituality. Such trends erode divine authority and unsettle faith identity, paving the way to doctrines of pantheism, reincarnation, and the worship of the self under guises such as inner light or awakening the God within. In this vein, the media has been harnessed to entrench New Age terminology and disseminate it widely, especially among the youth and women, through talk shows, self-help workshops, and the platforms of influencers across social media. Terms like raising vibrations, the law of attraction, reality programming, energy release are now uttered daily, woven into cultural discourse and presented in polished packages of glossy visuals, soothing meditative music, and promises of instant success and serenity, all divorced from moral or religious obligation, and at times dismissive of diligence and striving at essential paths to achievement. By endlessly reproducing such emotionally charged and suggestive content, these practices become normalized, even ritualized, as daily habits. Chanting affirmations before a mirror, engaging in guided meditations to the rhythm of cosmic frequencies, all without awareness that these practices stem from alien, demonic doctrines fundamentally opposed to the essence of true monotheism. Thus, these platforms succeeded in displacing religion from the realm of the search for tranquility, or at the very least, replacing it with doctrines that promise man mastery over his destiny if only he believes in himself. It is, in essence, a rebranding of pagan philosophies cloaked in religious garb, where the stone idol has merely been supplanted by man himself. This ideology entered the Arab and Islamic world under the guise of alluring banners: self-development, neuro-linguistic programming, laws of success, self-motivation, promoted by figures who embraced New Age philosophies and repackaged them with polished, emotional rhetoric that spoke to ambition, aspiration, and the dream of transcendence. Yet at their core, these constructs establish an intellectual system with pagan roots, recast into local forms, adorned with simple Arabic idioms, and at times dressed in the garments of religion, positivity, optimism, or even reliance upon God. Some of these trainers and advisors, whether knowingly or unwittingly, contributed to the secularization of spirituality, stripping it of its monotheistic essence and offering counterfeit alternatives in place of prayer, prostration, and humble submission before God. In their stead, they invite people to commune with the higher self, to summon abundance from the cosmos, and to reprogram the subconscious, a perilous slide toward veiled atheism. Even more troubling, certain of these figures gained broad popular legitimacy, becoming icons of success and change. Their influence extended into educational, media, and even religious institutions, which at times adopted their discourse uncritically, embedding these beliefs into the consciousness of entire generations. Among the earliest to propagate such ideas was Dr. Ibrahim al-Feki, who popularized concepts of NLP and the law of attraction under the banner of human development. In his writings and lectures, he interwove Western thought with esoteric Sufi notions, presenting ideas such as vital energy, subconscious programming, and the power of thought in forms outwardly clothed with an Islamic appearance. After him came his disciples, presenting themselves as self-development coaches and promoting notions of the law of attraction, telepathy, and the interpretation of events through energy vibrations. They blurred the lines between psychology, religion, and deeply pagan spiritual interpretations, deploying expressions like vibrations of love, drawing events from the universe, cosmic intention, terms imported from Buddhist and Hindu belief systems, disguised in a pseudo-religious veneer, at times supported by Quranic verses ripped from their context or interpreted in ways superficially aligned with mystical aberrations. It must be emphasized that these were not merely individuals but cultural phenomena, formed within a broader intellectual system backed by immense financial resources, evidence of a profound penetration of the intellectual, religious, educational, and social spheres, aimed at distorting true faith. Not by altering the Quran, for none can do that, but by reinterpreting and manipulating its verses to conform to spurious, pseudo-scientific claims. In our present age, dominated by materialism, psychological anxiety, and spiritual disquiet, man yearns for serenity and turns instinctively to spiritual healing and communion with the higher self. Many thus find in the concepts of energy, aura, and chakras the solace they seek. especially since these ideas are presented in scientific or quasi-scientific garb that lends them the appearance of credibility and empirical validity. Yet beneath this polished facade lurk perilous doctrines, blending covert atheism with deviant mysticism, substituting God of the cosmos, faith with energy, revelation with inner intuition. Marketed in modern societies as tools for psychological and spiritual well-being, they in fact carry profound and corrosive effects on thought and behavior, of which many practitioners remain unaware. Psychologically, such techniques rely heavily on suggestion, deluding man into believing he possesses absolute control over his health through balancing energies or opening chakras. This fosters a false sense of security and leads to neglect of tangible factors, both organic and psychological, that may underlie illness. Far more dangerous, however, is their impact on faith, replacing belief in divine decree and the wisdom of the Creator with a notion of cosmic energy governed by karmic laws and cycles of reincarnation. Such concepts stand in outright contradiction to monotheism, amounting to veiled idolatry. Instead of turning to repentance or prayer in times of trial, people are urged to sit in meditation sessions to restore chakra balance, severing themselves from the true source of guidance and salvation. It is telling that those who immerse themselves in these practices often drift toward individualism and social withdrawal under the pretext of avoiding negative energies in their relationships, even when such ties are religiously obligatory, such as maintaining kinship bonds or honoring one's parents. This fosters within them a tendency toward emotional detachment from others, seeing loved ones as obstacles to spiritual growth, which in turn erodes human and family bonds. Psychological studies have indicated that some regular practitioners of energy meditation techniques, or those fixated on opening chakras, experience hallucinations, identity disturbances, anxiety, and manic episodes, even loss of perception, owing to their deep immersion in energy practices and meditation without rational or faith-based grounding. Moreover, these practices fuel a consumerist and exploitative pattern under the guise of liberation. A vast market thrives around them: sacred stones, incense, books, and costly training courses, creating a consumer cycle cloaked in false spirituality. Far from freeing the individual from dependency, it makes him a servant to chakra cleansing sessions and frequency-raising methods, always in exchange for money. But pause here and do not be surprised. Despite all the foregoing, energy healing, chakra cleansing, and the law of attraction are indeed realities, not myths. Yet they are distorted realities, diverted by the people of falsehood from their rightful orientation, becoming tools of doctrinal deviation. For though God Almighty is in no need of causes, He created us in this world within a precise system of causes. Among the greatest of these causes is energy. Our entire material world is but manifestations of energies whose origin is the overflow of divine power. Thus, the supreme means of benefiting from these energies is faith in God and adherence to His obligations. Prayer, for instance, is not merely movements and utterances. It is the most sublime process of spiritual recharging, a renewed spiritual encounter that regulates the breath of the body and the rhythm of the mind, a true connection between servant and Lord. From it flows the loftiest of spiritual energies, healing the soul, rectifying the heart, and reflecting His light, serenity, and health upon the body. This is, in its purest form, the greatest energy healing. True faith also opens the door to genuine reliance upon God, binding the heart to the supreme source of energy, the supreme light, the light of the heavens and the earth. Every energy in the cosmos is but a strand from His light, and there is no path to connect with it in a way that purifies and heals except through faith in Him and obedience to Him. Thus, whoever seeks energy healing in its pure and authentic form will not find it in imported meditations or deviant rituals. He will find it in purifying ablution, in sincere prayer, in constant remembrance, and in heartfelt supplication, from which the soul draws strength, peace, and healing. The more a person makes his bond with his Lord the axis of his life, the clearer his heart becomes, the calmer his soul, and the healthier his body. Fear transforms into security, anxiety into tranquility, despair into hope, and weakness into strength. For the energy that flows from faith in God and in prayer cannot be measured against any finite energy. It is connected to the source of absolute power, untouched by exhaustion, weakness, or decline. Amid the clamor of false spiritual doctrines, such as the opening of chakras, the summoning of cosmic energy, the delusions of reincarnation, and communion with the so-called astral body, the urgent need for a return to the pure divine light becomes manifest, like a beacon in a sea of deception. These doctrines, which gain popularity in the West due to spiritual emptiness and material alienation, have crept into the Islamic world, posing a grave threat to its doctrinal identity. Hence arises the pressing necessity for a conscious confrontation, an educational, media, and religious unveiling that fortifies generations against the enticement of such illusions. This is not to be achieved by mere rejection of these ideas, but through understanding, exposing, and unmasking their origins, so that the soul does not lose itself in a whirlpool of sorcery cloaked in religious and scientific disguise. Then, to seal the cracks through which they slip, one must deepen awareness of creed, nurture pure connection with God Almighty, and cultivate within souls the aims of the Sharia, the meanings of purification, certainty, and contentment. It is a submission to the truth that the unseen world has been veiled from us by God for our own good. Yet He has created doors leading to it as a form of trial. These doors are known to the devils, and they act as guides to them. So beware of falling into this temptation.